All right, so for the last, what, 50 years or so, pretty much the whole world has been part of this massive public health experiment. So today, we're going to be detectives. We're going to investigate this really compelling case. And the question at its heart is this: what if the cure we were all sold was actually worse than the disease?
Yeah, that's the central mystery we're tackling. We were all given this really clear set of instructions, right? A roadmap to avoid a major killer, heart disease. But here's the twist. What if following that advice to the letter didn't actually save us? What if it did the opposite and led us right down the path to the epidemics we're facing today, like obesity and diabetes? So, where did this whole thing even start? Well, our story kicks off in post war America. You've got this new health scare that's just gripping the nation. And science, well, science was looking for a villain, a single, simple bad guy to pin it all on.
And wow, look at how fast this all happened. In the 50s, heart attacks are spiking. Even President Eisenhower had one. And people are, they're desperate for answers. Then along comes this physiologist, Ansel Keys, with a super compelling theory. He says, hey, it's the fat, specifically saturated fat. It's clogging your arteries. It was simple, it made sense, and boom, by 1980, it wasn't just a theory anymore. It was official government policy. And this pyramid became the absolute gospel of nutrition for generations. It was everywhere. It visually spelled out the official advice. And what was the foundation of a healthy diet? A giant mountain of carbs. We're talking 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, and pasta every single day. And way up at the top, in that tiny little triangle that you're supposed to use sparingly, that's where they stuck the fats and oils. The message could not have been clearer. Carbs are good, fat is bad.
But here's the major plot twist in our detective story. People actually listened. They did what they were told. They cut back on fat. They ditched the eggs. They ate less red meat. And yet, the one disease this whole thing was supposed to prevent? It didn't go away. In fact, things got worse. Rates of obesity, diabetes, and even heart disease just kept on climbing. So what on earth went wrong?
Okay, let's look at our next piece of evidence. It's a simple rule of food science, right? When you take something out of food, you have to put something else in. And the food industry, well, they found a replacement that was super cheap, incredibly effective, and, as we're about to find out, very problematic. Just think about it for a second. Fat isn't just fat, it's flavor. It's what gives food that satisfying texture. So when you start making a low-fat yogurt or low-fat cookies or low-fat salad dressing, what happens? They taste like cardboard. They're totally bland. So to make these new healthy products taste good enough for people to actually buy them, the industry needed a secret weapon. And boy, did they find one.
And this graph right here, this is our smoking gun. Just look at that insane spike in sugar consumption. Now see that dotted line? That marks 1980, the exact year the official low-fat guidelines came out. It's just impossible to ignore that correlation. We literally traded fat for sugar.
And this wasn't just, regular table sugar. Oh no, the industry's weapon of choice was high fructose corn syrup. And why that? Well, a few reasons. First, it was dirt cheap, thanks to big government corn subsidies. Second, it's super easy to mix into everything. But here's the really insidious part. It actually bypasses the hormones in your body that are supposed to tell your brain, hey, you're full, stop eating. It's basically the perfect ingredient if your goal is to make people eat more, and of course, buy more.
So this new formula of low-fat, high-sugar food, it did more than just change what was on our plates. It fundamentally changed our biology. It literally started rewiring our bodies and our brains. Get this. A doctor in the UK decided to run an experiment on himself. For 1 month, he ate a diet that was 80% processed food, just to see what would happen. And the results were just staggering. Within a few days, he was hungry all the time, couldn't get full. By the end of the month, he'd gained 6.5 kilos. But that's not even the craziest part. When they tested his hormones, his hunger hormone, ghrelin, had shot up by 30%. It basically turned his appetite into a runaway train.
And this is so important to understand. This isn't just about willpower. It's not about being weak. These foods are literally engineered to be addictive. The combination of concentrated sugar and processed fats gets absorbed so fast that it gives your brain this massive dopamine hit, a reward signal so powerful that whole natural foods, like an apple or a piece of steak, they just can't compete. There's no way.
Okay, so let's recap our case. If fat wasn't the main villain and sugar was maybe the accomplice, who or what is the real culprit behind this whole health crisis? Well, the investigation now points inward, to a mechanism happening inside our own bodies. And the prime suspect has a name, insulin resistance. Now, this is a big one, but the analogy is actually pretty simple. Think of the hormone insulin as a key. Its job is to unlock your body's cells to let energy, in the form of glucose, get inside. But what happens when you're constantly flooding your body with sugar and refined carbs? Your body has to pump out more and more of that insulin key. Eventually, your cells just get overwhelmed, and they start to ignore the signal. It's like the locks on your cells get all gummed up, and the key just doesn't work anymore. And all that sugar, it's left stranded in your bloodstream with nowhere to go. And this creates this absolutely vicious cycle. You can see it right here. Step 1, you eat those high-sugar, high-carb foods, which spikes your insulin. Step 2, your cells resist the insulin, so all that sugar can't get in for energy. So where does it go? It gets stored as fat. But, and here's the kicker, because that energy never actually got into your cells, your brain thinks you're still starving, so you feel tired and hungry again. And what do you do when you're tired and hungry? You reach for more carbs, and the whole miserable cycle just starts all over again. And listen, this isn't some rare, obscure condition we're talking about. This is a full-blown global phenomenon. The estimated number is 2.2 billion people. That's billion with a B. People worldwide who are somewhere on the spectrum of insulin resistance, a spectrum that leads straight to obesity, type 2 diabetes, and, ironically, heart disease. So what are the warning signs? Well, it's not just about high blood sugar. It's actually a whole cluster of symptoms, sometimes called metabolic syndrome, that are basically red flags that your body's energy system is going haywire. We're talking about things like extra fat around your belly, high blood pressure, and messed up cholesterol numbers, specifically high triglycerides and low levels of that good HDL cholesterol. All right, so we've identified the real culprit. But the case isn't closed yet. The final chapter of our investigation is all about the solution. How do we reverse this damage? It all comes down to finding a new way to eat, one that's designed to fix our broken metabolism. And the contrast couldn't be more stark. Just look at this. On the left, you've got the old school advice, the food pyramid, basically. High carb, low fat. On the right, you have something like a ketogenic diet, which is just one of the newer approaches. And as you can see, it completely flips that ratio on its head. It's a pretty radical shift, and it's aimed squarely at one thing, breaking that vicious cycle of insulin resistance. And hey, keto isn't the only game in town. There's a whole range of approaches people are trying now, from paleo to just a general low-carb diet. But they all share a common thread. They all consciously reduce the refined carbohydrates and sugars that got us into this mess in the first place. The big takeaway here is that the conversation is finally shifting. We're moving away from blaming one single nutrient, like fat, and moving towards focusing on whole foods and what really matters, our overall metabolic health. So there you have it. The case of the wrong advice seems to be cracked. For decades, we were all chasing the wrong suspect. We put fat on trial while the real culprits, refined carbohydrates and sugar, were busy creating a massive metabolic crisis. The evidence is all in. The only question left is, now that you know the whole story, what will you put on your plate?